Okay, we're back, and just to save some time, I've added a couple more images clipped over the gray cards. So now you're seeing 5 images that have been clipped over the gray cards. And the next thing we're going to do is add our main statement at the bottom. I'm going to just call this Kansas. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go down here to the bottom and click on this little icon that looks like a new page. You can also get to it from clicking on File and Layer and New Adjustment Layer. But I'm just going to click on that, and I'm just going to call it Kansas, for lack of a better word. And you can see it's a blank layer. If I turn it off or turn it back on, it has no effect. Whereas if I did that with one of the clipping images, it goes off and back on, and all you see is the clipping card. That's how layers works. You see the next thing down through the layer or through what might be called a mask, and I'll teach you more about masks in another video. But you're just seeing, it's like putting levels of acetate down one over the other, and you're seeing everything that's visible from the top layer. Okay, so we're on our Kansas layer. I'm going to go over and grab the text tool. It's marked T right here, and I'm just going to drag across the entire document. I'm going to go up to the top and adjust the lettering color to white, just so it's a little bit more visible. And let me go ahead and just fix my font here. I like to use, maybe this Optima is good, and maybe something a little bit more bold, and something a little larger. We'll start with that. And I'm going to use all caps. So I've got my word spelled out. I'm going to justify it in the center, and then to make it larger, all I have to do is go over here to this letter, the small and large T, and you can see the cursor turns to an arrow, and you just hold the mouse down and drag it. I'm dragging to the right to make it larger. I'm going to continue to do that until it's about as large as I want it. All right. So those are my words. And the next thing is, how do I get those cool words to show up as an image? Well, the best way to do that is to make the word a clipping mask. So we're going to take an image. I've got one right here. I'm just going to drag it over the same way I've been showing you. And I'm going to drag it into the document. And you can see it's very large. But the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a clipping mask down to the next layer. And guess what happens? It turns into the words Kansas. And all I have to do is resize it. I'll just go over here using this resize tool and hit the constrain. We can do a little bit more resizing, it looks like. That might not be the best image. Let's see if we can get some more that look a little bit more like Kansas. That's not bad. So I just hit enter, and so now we've got a good start. Okay, so we've got all these layers, and they're all clipped on top of each other. And now we're going to add a couple of special effects. I'm going to start with the first gray card over here. And I've clicked on the layer for the gray card. I'm going to click on this bottom little button here. It says add a layer style, and it's called effects. When I click on that, I get an option to add what's called a drop shadow. And here's the button and the layer style area. So I'm going to go over here to the little angle area. I'm going to make that coming down from the upper left. And the cool thing is, when you're in this layer style dialog box, you can actually go over into the same area and move that around. You see how I'm moving that around and just kind of changing it up like that? I'm going to make that a little bit smaller, bring it out a little bit more. Probably reduce the size a little bit, but we don't want it that bad. There, how's that? That's not bad. That's looking pretty good. Now, while I'm in this, I might as well create what's called a stroke, or a little line, a frame around the clipped document. I just click on stroke, I'm going to make it white just so it's a little bit more visible, and maybe make it, let's start with 4 pixels. That's probably a good size right there. So now we've got 2 special effects, a drop shadow and a stroke around this clipped layer. Now if you put this around the regular layer, the sunflowers, it wouldn't work because the outside of it is much larger than the clipped layer. So really we're creating special effects on the clipping card. The next thing I'm going to do is a really cool effect. I'm just going to hold down my Option or my Alt button on my keyboard and click down and drag this up to the next special effects layer. It copies all the same special effects. So I hold down Option or Alt, I click down on Effects, drag it up. One more time, do it, and there we go. So now I've got all 5 of my gray cards with special effects, and guess what? I'm going to do the same thing to the word Kansas, and bingo, I've got special effects on the word Kansas, and there's my promo card. It's all created, it's looking good. The only thing I have to do is save it. I can click File and save it as a JPEG. I would probably save it as a PSD file. Another cool technique that I like to use sometimes if I just want to see the whole thing, if I press Command, Option, Shift, and the letter E, or Control, Alt, Shift, and the letter E on your PC, you get an entire layer, and I should have done that on the highest layer up there. There we go. So there it is, and that is it's not a flattened image, but it's just a composite image of all of the layers that I had open and visible. So now I can just have that. If I needed to do any other work on it, I could do it as a whole, or I could do it as layers. So that's your first project. I've created these videos so that you can stop and start anytime you want to, go through it, take it as on your own time, and we cover this in class, but I thought it's a good way to show you how to do it. You can have the videos and go through it on your own time, because learning Photoshop is a lot to absorb all at one time. And so these introductory concepts are good to have on video, show you how things work, and we'll see what we have up next. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.